Today we're going to be looking at NIST AC-3 Security Control, NIST AC-3. So follow along if you're an assessor, use this while you're on the job. If you For AC-3, access enforcement. So this control deals with how the access controls will be enforced. For user accounts, you could enforce them by having a process or a form. Maybe a user has to sign a form before an account is created. So they could sign an access control form, or the user could submit a ticket, like a help desk ticket for the account to be created. So it could be either ServiceNow, Remedy, Track IT. There are different help desk tools out there, but having a process in place and having a tool in place to enforce account management and access controls. So those would be the types of things you would want to see. Your documentation. What is the process? Is it written out in your policies or your procedure documents? Is there a policy that says, hey, all accounts, all user accounts that are created has to go through XYZ? Then lastly, having screenshots of either the ticketing system or the settings of when the account was created and the types of controls in place to enforce account management. So examples would be making sure that there is password complexity has been set up, the user has been added to the right group, that the account expires after 60 days or 30 days or whatever the organization defines. But that tool is part of the access management and enforcement. And then here we have access enforcement, restricted access to privileged functions, withdrawn and added to AC-6. So we'll talk about that when we get to AC-6. Access enforcement for dual authorization. All right, so this here is dual authorization. So making sure you have more than one person who can actually approve something. For example, I'll use the example of checks. So maybe in order for a check to be cashed, you need two signatures, maybe one from the CFO and one from the CEO on the check before the check can be cashed. So it's that type of thing where you have two people. Dual authorization, also known as two-person control, reduces risk related to insider threats. Dual authorization mechanisms require the approval of two authorized individuals to execute. So just making sure that there's no fraud, right? It's almost like separation of duties, which is another control, AC-5. But with this control, you want to see any type of settings if that's possible, and you want to see written procedures in your documentation. AC-3 Enhancement 3, mandatory access controls. So mandatory access control is a type of control that restricts what its subjects or objects can actually do. A subject is someone or something that's trying to access an object. An object is something that the subject accesses. So an example of a subject could be a user, it could be a process, it could be a user or user account or service account, while an object could be like a file, right? So with mandatory access controls, it's saying that there needs to be some restrictions for the subjects and objects. And then here are some of the restrictions that I mentioned. It's saying that specifies that a subject that has been granted access to information is constrained from doing any of the following: passing the information to unauthorized subjects or objects, granting its privileges to other subjects, changing one or more security attributes specified by the policy on subjects. So these are the different restrictions that are covered under mandatory access control. So in your spare time, go ahead and read this document and get familiarize yourself with this. AC-3 Enhancement 4. Access Enforcement Discretionary Access Controls. So discretionary access controls deal with controls that are granted based on the owner's discretion. So the system owner could allow someone, a subject, to have access to particular resources, and they also would have some restrictions, kind of like the mandatory access control, but maybe not as much, and it's based on the discretion of the approver. Okay, so it's the opposite of mandatory access control. So mandatory access control is also known as non-discretion controls, non-discretion access controls, while discretionary access control is known as discretionary access control. It's the opposite of mandatory access controls. AC-3 Enhancement 5, Access Enforcement, Security Relevant Information. So this control is saying that prevent access to, again, organization-defined security relevant information, except during secure non-operable system assets. So this control, in essence, is saying, hey, let's restrict access to things that are security related, things that, if tampered, would mess up this system or have a security impact on the system. And it gives examples of what those things are. It says here, security relevant information includes access control lists, filtering rules for routers or firewalls, configuration parameters for security services, and cryptographic key management information. So then it also says secure non-operable system states includes the times in which systems are not performing missions or business relevant processing, such as when the system is offline for maintenance, boot up, troubleshooting, or shut down. So this is the other part of the control. It says restrict access to security relevant information except during secure non-operable system states. So when the system is down, or for maintenance, or if you're upgrading the system or things of that nature, then it's permissible to have access to security relevant information. AC-3 Enhancement 6, Access enforcement, protection of user and system information. This was withdrawn and incorporated into MP4 and SC28. So we'll cover that when we get there. So next one is AC-3 Enhancement 7. Access enforcement, role-based access control. Again, access control, role-based controls are controls set or permissions given to a user based on their role or their function. So role-based access control is also known as RBAC, spelled this way. It says role-based access control is an access control policy that enforces access to objects and system functions based on the defined role, that is, their job function of the subject. So organizations can create specific roles based on job functions and the authorizations, that is, privileges, to perform needed operations on the systems associated with the organization defined roles. So again, access controls based on your role. If your role is a system administrator, someone whose role is a user will not have the same level of access. So here is an example of an artifact that you could review as an assessor to assess the AC controls or AC-3 controls. So here they're talking about the different user accounts. So they have user account, admin account, developer account, tester account, prod account, local account, and these are the different users, and this is the type of group or role that they have or belong to. And here is like a brief description of said roles. In other documents, the description will be more verbose than this. It'll have more content than this. This is just an example policy document. Okay.
I have a cybersecurity course called the Security Control Assessor course. This course trains you on how to become a Security Control Assessor, also known as an SCA or a SCA. Now, with this training, it's going to show you step by step on the job training what a Security Control Assessor does, how the Security Control Assessor prepares for an assessment. If you don't know who a Security Control Assessor is, a Security Control Assessor is one who assesses security controls. Security controls are things or measures that you put in place to reduce risk to an acceptable level. So this training will show you the ins and outs on how to become a SCA. It also comes with a certificate of completion, resume prep videos, interview prep videos. It also comes with tons of resources, templates that you would use on the job. So if you are considering a career change or a field within cybersecurity that requires no technical skills, and it's only about the compliance side of cybersecurity, which deals with policies, procedures, and things of that nature. As a security control assessor, you're going to be looking at documentation, reviewing documentation, and writing your comments, saying, hey, this passes, this fails, this is not right, this is correct. So that's pretty much what a security control assessor does. You look at evidence and you determine if the evidence is satisfactory or not. And you have a cheat sheet with you to use as your guide. So for more information, sign up for this course, and I promise you, you will not regret it.
Don't forget to subscribe and like. We're also on IG at CyberFirst Solutions. Thank you.